In true crime, some cases are so brutal, so baffling, they leave a permanent scar on the public. They become modern folklore, whispered warnings about the darkness that can lurk in the most secluded corners of the world. This is the story of one such case, the Hinterkaifeck murders. Our story begins in the heart of Bavaria, Germany, in the spring of 1922. The nation was still reeling from the aftermath of the Great War, a time of deep social and economic turmoil. Far from the chaos of the cities, nestled in the quiet countryside, there was a lonely farm. The name of the farmstead, Hinterkaifeck, literally translates to behind Kaifeck, a fitting description for a place that felt like it was at the edge of the world. It sat by dark forests and wide, windy fields, a solitary structure against a vast, indifferent landscape. The nearest village, Kaifeck, was a full kilometer away, a significant distance in an era before widespread automobile use. To reach the farm, one had to traverse a narrow, unlit path that snaked through the woods, a journey few people ever made. This isolation was both a choice and a consequence. The farm was a self-contained world, but its seclusion also bred suspicion and gossip in the nearby communities. The family who lived there, the Grubers, were known to be private, even reclusive, which only deepened the mystery surrounding them. 3 generations lived under its roof. The patriarch, 63-year-old Andreas Gruber, and his 72-year-old wife, Cecilia. With them lived their widowed daughter, 35-year-old Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 young children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Josef. Just days before the tragedy, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived to begin her service. For this family, the farm was their entire world, a place of hard labor and simple existence. But in their final days, it would become their prison, and ultimately, their tomb. The story of what happened at Hinterkaifeck is a dark and chilling puzzle, a crime that, even a century later, remains terrifyingly unsolved. In the remote Bavarian countryside, nestled half a kilometer from the nearest village, stood the farmstead of Hinterkaifeck. It was a world unto itself, a place of hard work and quiet isolation for the Gruber family. But in the weeks leading up to the end of March, 1922, the farm's profound solitude began to feel less like a comfort and more like a vulnerability. A series of strange and unsettling events started to unfold, weaving a thread of anxiety through the fabric of their daily lives. At first, they were just little things, the kind of odd occurrences one might dismiss amidst the constant toil of farm life. A misplaced tool, an unfamiliar sound carried on the wind. They were easy to ignore, to rationalize away as tricks of the mind or quirks of an old house settling. But soon, the incidents grew too specific, too strange to be mere coincidence. The first concrete sign of trouble appeared in the snow-dusted mud. The family patriarch, Andreas Gruber, discovered a single set of footprints leading from the dense forest at the edge of their property directly to the farmhouse. He followed the trail, expecting to find a visitor or a lost traveler, but the tracks simply stopped. There were no corresponding prints leading away. It was as if someone had walked out of the woods, approached their home, and then vanished. Or worse, had never left. The unnerving discovery planted a seed of fear. The house no longer felt secure. It felt like someone had breached their sanctuary, a silent observer hiding just out of sight. Soon after, Andreas was disturbed by noises from the attic, the distinct sounds of footsteps creaking on the floorboards above his head. Convinced an intruder was hiding there, he grabbed a tool and climbed up to investigate. He searched every corner, behind every stored item, but found nothing. The attic was empty, silent, and coated in a thick, undisturbed layer of dust. Then, a newspaper appeared on the property. It was a copy from Munich, a city miles away. No one in the family subscribed to it, and the postman hadn't delivered it. It was simply there, a foreign object in their isolated world, with no explanation for its arrival. The feeling of being watched intensified when the main house key went missing. The family searched everywhere, but it was gone. Not long after, Andreas discovered fresh scratches on the lock of the tool shed. It was clear someone had tried to break in, fumbling with the lock, testing the farm's defenses. The missing house key, the footprints, the noises, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Someone was living with them, unseen, hiding in the shadows of their own home. Fear became a permanent resident at Hinterkaifeck. The previous maid, unnerved by the oppressive atmosphere and convinced the house was haunted, had already quit in terror. On the fateful day of March 31st, her replacement, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived to begin her employment. She walked toward the isolated farmhouse, unaware that she was stepping into the final, terrifying chapter of its history. It would be her first and her very last day. That night, the killers chose to strike. It seems the family was lured out, one by one. The exact details are lost to time. The family missed Sunday church, little Kazelia missed school. By Tuesday, the mail was still untouched. A mechanic came to fix a machine. He called and knocked. No one replied. He heard animals, but no people. At last, neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer formed a small search party. They walked to the farm. They forced the barn door and found horror. 4 bodies lay there, partly covered by hay. Andreas Gruber, his wife, Cecilia, who was only 7, and his daughter, Victoria. The weapon was a mattock, a heavy farm tool. The blows were to the head. The attack was planned. Inside the house, they found the others. The new maid, Maria, lay in the bedroom. 2-year-old Joseph was killed in his sleep. Little Cecilia lived for hours and pulled out her hair. It was a slow, cruel night. It wasn't until April 5th, a full day after the gruesome discovery, that investigators from the Munich Police Department finally reached the isolated farmstead of Hinterkaifeck. The journey itself was a stark reminder of the farm's seclusion, a factor that had both hidden the crime and delayed its discovery. What awaited them was not a pristine crime scene, but a place already disturbed by the currents of daily life and morbid curiosity. The scene was hopelessly compromised. Before the authorities arrived, neighbors and friends had walked through the property. In their shock and grief, they had moved the bodies, covered them, and inadvertently trampled over any potential evidence. The concept of securing a crime scene was in its infancy, and even the initial responding officers made critical errors, allowing dozens of people to wander through the house and barn. Forensic science as we know it did not exist. There were no DNA databases, no sophisticated fingerprinting techniques, and evidence control was rudimentary at best. The investigation was immediately on its back foot, relying on intuition and old-fashioned detective work in a case that defied all logic. In a bizarre and desperate move that highlighted their limitations, the victims' heads were eventually severed and sent to Munich for examination. They were even presented to a clairvoyant in the hopes of gleaning some supernatural insight. Tragically, this last, desperate piece of evidence was lost to the chaos of World War II, vanishing forever and taking any potential secrets with it. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a chilling realization emerged. The killer hadn't fled. They had stayed on the farm for several days after the murders. They had eaten meals in the kitchen, slept in a bed, and tended to the livestock, feeding the cows and the dog. This fact dismantled the most obvious motive. A significant amount of money and jewelry were found untouched in the house. This was not a simple robbery gone wrong. The motive was something far more personal, more sinister. The perpetrator's actions painted a deeply unsettling portrait. Someone who felt comfortable, perhaps even entitled to be in the Grubers' home. Was this a person who felt they belonged there, or was it the act of a profoundly disturbed mind playing out a grotesque parody of domestic life? The police were left with a series of contradictions. A brutal, violent attack, followed by days of calm, routine farm life, a crime with no apparent financial motive, and a crime scene that had been wiped clean not by the killer, but by the community itself. Eventually, they found the likely murder weapon, a mattock, hidden in the attic. It was cleaned of any obvious traces of the crime. Like everything else at Hinterkaifeck, it was just another object in a house of secrets, offering no answers, only deepening the mystery. The main suspect was neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer. He led the search and found the bodies. He had a tense history with Victoria. He once claimed to be Joseph's father. At the scene, he acted very sure of the place. He moved bodies, saying he searched for his son. Police questioned him for years. No proof was found. They also looked at drifters and vagrants. Many names came and went. Every lead died. The killer stayed a ghost. One theory says Victoria's husband, Carl Gabriel, did not die in the war. His body was never found. Some say he deserted, lived abroad, then came back years later. He might have learned of the incest rumor between Victoria and her father. In rage and trauma, he could have killed them all. He would know the house and vanish again. But there is no proof he returned. It remains a story. A strong idea? Yes, but still only an idea. For decades, the case gathered dust. In 2007, police students reopened the files. They read every report, every note, every statement. They used modern profiling to picture the killer. They agreed it was personal, not a theft. They honored the victims at a simple grave. The skulls were lost long ago. Their final report stayed private to protect families. They likely had a main suspect, but without DNA, they chose silence. Their work is the best modern review we have. The farm was torn down in 1923. Today, it is only a field. A small shrine remembers 6 lives. The story lives on in books, films, and podcasts. It teaches hard lessons: bad crime scenes, lost proof, weak tools. It also hits our deepest fear: danger inside the home. A safe place broken by someone we cannot see. The killer was human. We will likely never know who. Hinterkaifeck remains a dark shape in the snow, forever walking toward a lonely farm. Come back for more haunts, chills, murder, and mystery. Share this video with family and friends. Please like and subscribe.